In 300 BC, the city of Cyprus was home to a very wealthy trader named Zeno. While on a voyage from Phoenicia to Piraeus, his boat tragically sank, resulting in the loss of his entire cargo. This single event, an occurrence entirely outside of Zeno's control or anyone else's, instantly transformed this very wealthy man into a poor one. Imagine, if you will, that you were Zeno. How would you react to your entire life's work, everything you had strived for and accumulated, being suddenly flushed away by the sheer and unforgiving force of nature? What would you consider to be the proper reaction in such a devastating situation? Would you be consumed by feelings of anger and resentment? Would you be overwhelmed by sadness and despair? Would you feel as though life had dealt you an unfair and that it had cheated you of your rightful rewards? For the vast majority of us, these would all be perfectly normal and understandable reactions to such a catastrophic loss. However, this was not the case for Zeno, the individual who is widely regarded as the father of Stoicism. It is said that even a single small change can have lasting and far-reaching effects, echoing into eternity. Similarly, a small reframing or adjustment of your mindset can cascade into larger and more impactful changes later on in your life. The very core of Stoicism lies in the definition of acceptance and indifference. After immersing himself in and carefully studying the works of Socrates and other great philosophers of the time, Zeno went on to create and teach the philosophy of Stoicism. According to Zeno, although we as human beings do not possess a great deal of control over the events that happen to us in our lives, we do, however, possess complete and absolute control over how those events ultimately affect us. It is this control that we must learn to cultivate and utilize to great effect in our daily lives. Rather than succumbing to despair and crying over spilled milk, or in this particular case, over drowned goods, Zeno focused his energy and attention on maintaining his composure in the face of the situation, remaining calm and neutral despite his seemingly dire predicament. Today, people often inadvertently view Stoics as individuals who cannot be broken, people who do not often linger for extended periods of time in the grip of emotional extremes, such as succumbing to fits of rage or being overcome by bouts of anxiety. However, it is important to understand that the original idea behind Stoicism was significantly more profound and nuanced than that. Rather than simply being a way to describe people who are unemotional or stoic in the modern sense of the word, Stoicism was, at its heart, a comprehensive way to view, describe, and ultimately understand the world and our place within it. It was, in essence, a complete way of life, encompassing every aspect of human existence. And that way of life has not only endured, but has also thrived for many centuries. Stoic philosophy, with its timeless wisdom and practical guidance, can be applied to a wide range of situations today, in much the same way that it was applied thousands of years ago in ancient times. Its benefits, both in terms of personal growth and societal well-being, are just as impactful and relevant in the modern world as they have ever been. Stoicism provides us with the tools and techniques necessary to effectively process negative emotions that arise from negative experiences, transforming those emotions into thoughtful insights that ultimately provide us with a unique and valuable perspective of the world around us. In the end, perspective is everything, and it is crucial to remember that everyone in the world has different experiences throughout their lives, and thus, as a natural consequence, everyone possesses different perspectives on the various aspects of life. Since the Stoics of ancient times frequently gathered, engaged in thoughtful discussions, and taught their philosophy in public places, their general philosophy and core principles became widely known and accessible to the general public. They firmly believed that the Stoic principles, with their emphasis on virtue, reason, and living in accordance with nature, could greatly benefit anyone and everyone, regardless of their social standing or background. Therefore, it simply did not make sense to them to hide that valuable knowledge and wisdom behind the closed and exclusive four walls of a school or the private courtyards of a palace. As a direct result of this and inclusive approach, everyone, from the lowliest slave to the most powerful emperor, had the opportunity to learn about Stoicism and to embrace its teachings as a way of life. And many people from all walks of life did indeed choose to become Stoics. Some of the world's most notable and influential Stoics include individuals such as Epictetus, whose name translates to acquired, as he was at one time owned as a slave; Seneca, who was a well-renowned and highly respected statesman; and Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and one of the most powerful and influential men to have ever lived. The early Stoics were not merely theorists. They practiced what they preached, striving to embody the principles of Stoicism in their daily lives. They actively avoided all forms of segregation and discrimination and were at the forefront of the fight against inequality in all its manifestations. They even invented the word cosmopolitan, a term which literally means citizen of the world. When people hear that word now in modern times, we typically think of large, diverse and vibrant cities such as New York, Toronto, Dubai and London, primarily because of how incredibly diverse and multicultural they are. However, it is important to recognize that this was precisely the type of unity and togetherness that the Stoics preached and advocated for, even at a time in history when such ideas were not widely popular or accepted by the mainstream. Furthermore, demonstrating their commitment to inclusivity, women were allowed to freely learn about Stoicism and were welcomed to become Stoics themselves, actively participating in the philosophical discourse and practice of Stoicism. So, with all of this in mind, why do so many people, even in the modern world, choose to adopt Stoicism as their preferred way of life? In a world that is so often full of unexpected turns of events, where challenges and setbacks are an inevitable part of the human experience, our emotions can frequently get in the way of our ability to navigate these challenges effectively and make sound judgments. In reality, we don't truly get sad or upset simply because bad things happen to us. Rather, we get sad and upset because unexpected bad things happen to us, catching us off guard and disrupting our sense of order and control. Rain, for example, is undeniably a good and beneficial thing for our planet. It plays a vital role in helping to water our plants, providing essential water for livestock, and helping to keep the overall temperature cool and humid. However, the truth of the matter is that when that dark cloud suddenly catches you outside, without an umbrella leaving you drenched and uncomfortable, it's never a good or pleasant experience. So with that being said, why don't we typically start crying and lamenting every single time it starts to rain? It's because, even though the situation may be unpleasant and inconvenient, we've learned to expect rain. It's something that we understand to be unavoidable and beyond our control. We can't directly control the weather, and while it may sometimes suck to get caught in the rain inevitably passes, and the light eventually returns. Stoicism teaches us that in much the same way, we should cultivate an attitude of expecting that everything bad that can potentially happen will eventually happen. Picture in your mind the worst possible outcome in any given situation and strive to be content and at peace with the knowledge that it could in fact occur. One of the key Stoic exercises that practitioners often engage in is known as voluntary discomfort, which is a specific exercise aimed at intentionally increasing feelings of gratitude and appreciation for what one already has. This can involve deliberately choosing to sleep on the floor of your kitchen instead of your comfortable bed, taking cold showers when you would normally prefer to take hot and relaxing ones, or even limiting your diet to nothing but potatoes for a few days at a time. Things like this, while seemingly unpleasant, can be incredibly valuable. This exercise helps you to cultivate a deeper understanding and appreciation of the fact that no matter how hard or challenging life may get at any given moment, you will still possess the inner strength and resilience to survive, and you have the potential to not only survive, but also to potentially thrive, provided that your mindset is right and you maintain a positive and proactive outlook. By actively choosing to withstand these uncomfortable situations and deliberately pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones, we indirectly and effectively prepare our mental fortitude for future misfortunes and challenges that we may inevitably face. With the current state of the world, where advertisements are constantly being shoved down our throats at every turn, we are consistently being made to believe that if we do not possess the next best thing, if we do not look a certain way, or if we do not make a certain amount of money, then we will never be truly happy or fulfilled in our lives. This misleading and ultimately harmful message is arguably more important and prevalent now than it has ever been in the past. We enter the world not knowing much of anything, our minds like blank slates ready to be filled with knowledge and experience. We grow up being taught a wide range of things at home by our families, in school, by our teachers, and by carefully observing and interacting with the world around us for ourselves. The thing is, a lot of times all three of these primary sources of knowledge teach us in different and sometimes conflicting ways, leading to confusion and uncertainty. The question then becomes, do we really need to internalize all of this? Knowledge that is constantly being thrown at us from various sources. If we do choose to internalize it all, we could unknowingly be setting unrealistic and ultimately unattainable expectations for our lives, which will inevitably leave us feeling ultimately disappointed, unsatisfied, and perpetually unfulfilled. In the end, that's no way to live a meaningful and happy life. We should instead make a conscious effort to focus on improving ourselves, for our own personal growth and development. We should do things primarily and only for ourselves, and for that reason alone. Attaching any external hope, validation, or secondary attachments to the actions and choices we make in life will almost always inevitably lead to disappointment and disillusionment. Most of the time, we end up desperately trying to fulfill that nagging sense of emptiness within us with external things that we believe will bring us lasting happiness and satisfaction, such as blowing all of your hard-earned money on a fancy and expensive car, a large and extravagant house, or even starting a family. Sometimes we do all of these things primarily or even exclusively for their perceived external value and not for their true internal value and significance. However, Stoicism teaches us that if you approach life in this way, constantly seeking external validation and placing your happiness in the hands of external forces, you are essentially setting yourself up for potential disappointment, as these external forces can always fail you, let you down, or be taken away from you. Cars, for example, almost always break down and require constant maintenance and repairs. Natural disasters can strike at any time and wipe away entire cities in an instant, and divorce rates continue to climb higher and higher each and every year. But it's important to recognize that even the free things in life, the things that don't cost any money, still come at a cost. Namely, the cost of space, both physical space and mental space. As the philosopher Seneca once wisely wrote, "Learning to live with less creates space in your life for the things that truly matter to you." Instead of constantly seeking external validation and material possessions, we must make a conscious choice to place our happiness and fulfillment on our intrinsic value as human beings and on nothing that we have or can physically acquire. We must choose to do our very best to keep a cool head and maintain our composure, regardless of what life throws at us. Because regardless of what it is we want or desire at the end of the day, we ultimately don't have any real control over the vast majority of things that happen to us in our lives. However, it is equally important to remember that we do, in fact, have all the control over how we choose to react to those things. That is the dichotomy of control, which stands as the most important and fundamental principle in Stoic philosophy. Stoics teach that we must learn to effectively separate what is within our control from what is outside of our control. We need to consciously determine our value not from things that we cannot control, such as external events or the opinions of others, but rather from the things that we can control, such as our own thoughts, actions, and character. Striving towards goals and pursuing our ambitions is undoubtedly a good and admirable trait, but breaking down and becoming consumed by negative emotions when those things don't go our way is, from a Stoic's point of view, ultimately useless, unproductive, and self-defeating. Making YouTube videos, for example, is, well, a lot easier and less demanding than being a Roman emperor, but it can still prove to be challenging and frustrating at times. First, you must carefully form your idea for the video, which often takes forever. Then you have to thoroughly research that idea, and sometimes you end up having to scrap it entirely because it's not good enough, forcing you to start all over again. Then you have to meticulously script the video, carefully create the video itself, edit it to perfection, and finally, craft the title, thumbnail, and all of the other elements before you can finally hit that upload button. Everything up until the precise point where you click that upload button is entirely up to you and within your control. However, once you click that upload button, the power dynamic shifts dramatically, and the ultimate control over the video's success shifts to the notoriously unpredictable YouTube algorithm. Still, a lot of people mistakenly judge the overall success of their YouTube channel or their Instagram account based on metrics such as how many views, subscribers, or followers they have, all of which, for the most part, are largely beyond and their control. Stoics teach that instead of focusing on these external and uncontrollable factors, you should judge the success of your work primarily or even exclusively based on the amount of effort you put into it, the quality of your work, and not on the outcome of your external hopes and desires. In essence, you should trust the process, focusing on the journey rather than solely on the destination. Think, for a moment, about a person who has been working incredibly hard at their job for the past 6 months. He now firmly believes that he deserves a promotion for his dedication and hard work, and so he confidently walks up to his boss with his meticulously prepared performance report in hand. The boss says thank you, but ultimately doesn't grant him the promotion he was hoping for, and he dejectedly goes home that evening, thinking that he must simply suck at his job and that all of his hard work was for nothing. He doesn't take into consideration the fact that the boss might have simply woken up on the wrong side of the bed that morning and been in a particularly bad mood, that someone else might have been better qualified or had more experience for the promotion at that specific time, or that maybe the company was simply losing money and couldn't afford to give out promotions at that moment. He doesn't know the real reason why he didn't get the promotion, but he's still upset and convinced that it must be his fault. If he had simply placed his value and self-worth on the quality of the performance report he turned in, and if he had kept doing what he was doing to continue striving to earn the promotion he wanted, he could have been much happier overall and less likely to be discouraged by the setback. With the right perspective and a more stoic mindset, his goal wouldn't have been diminished in any way, but merely postponed for a later time. It's this reframing of your mindset, this conscious shift In perspective, that is absolutely crucial to living a more fulfilling and stoic life. A true Stoic does not view their successes primarily or exclusively based on the financial gain or external rewards of their ventures, but rather is comforted and content by the simple fact that they can live a comfortable and fulfilling life, without needing or relying on all of the material things that money can buy. These core principles and values are encapsulated in what are known as the four main virtues of Stoicism: wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. Wisdom is fundamentally being able to effectively separate between what is internal and what is external, what is within your control and what is outside of your control. And it is also the ability to consciously choose our reaction and response to the various things that happen to us throughout our lives. As the renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl famously said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space, one is our power to choose our response." Courage, in the Stoic context, can be summed up in two powerful words: persist and resist. Temperance or moderation is essentially what I just did there, doing more with less and saying more with fewer words. While billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are constantly fighting and competing at the very top of the Forbes list, Stoics firmly believe that the limit of wealth should simply be having what is essential for a comfortable life, and then having just enough to live comfortably and securely. Justice is considered to be the most important of all the virtues in Stoicism. It instructs that no one should ever do harm to another human being because we were all born for each other, to do good to one another and not to harm ourselves. Nelson Mandela, who was one of the most famous and influential African leaders in the world, provides an excellent example of Stoic principles in action. While he was courageously fighting against the oppressive system of apartheid in South Africa, he was unjustly sentenced to life in prison, where he remained for a long and arduous 27 years before finally being released. When he was eventually released from prison, he was rightfully elected president of South Africa, and thus many people throughout the world thought that he was inevitably going to brutally punish and seek revenge against all of the people that had anything to do with the implementation and enforcement of apartheid or with his lengthy and unjust imprisonment. But of course, he did not. Throughout his time in prison, Mandela had immersed himself in and carefully read the works of Marcus Aurelius, one of the most prominent Stoic philosophers. And in the process, he learned and internalized many of the core values and principles of Stoicism, all of which he consistently practiced throughout his life. Instead of calling for the heads of the wrongdoers and seeking retribution for the injustices he had suffered, Nelson Mandela instead urged his people to seek the complete opposite, to relax, to forgive, and to rebuild their nation. He stressed the crucial point that the past was now beyond their control,